So turn please to John chapter 12. We're going to start this lesson at verse 20. You were given this to translate from verse 20 onwards. And I'm going to share the text with you primarily as we look at this together, because I don't want you to be distracted by the fact that I am in Hawaii as I do this class. Virtual teaching does have its advantages, although I'm actually doing this from our house on FC College, so don't be deceived by the virtual background. So let me share my screen, and hopefully things will look the way they're supposed to. Annotation, spotlight, and I have to move things. All right, didn't scroll down before beginning. So looking at John chapter 12, verses 20 to 50, and I want us to notice some key things in the text. First of all, you of course will note that this is the imperfect of me, third person plural. Normally we're used to ein, but in this case, esan. Ein and esan are used in John's gospel to introduce new characters in the story. And here we have Hellenes, we have Gentiles who have come to the feast. Could be also Greek-speaking Jews. It's not clear what is meant by Hellenes in this context, because it would be more likely for Greek-speaking Jews to come to the feast rather than for out-and-out Gentiles, uncircumcised Gentiles. In any case, they have come up, ana, bainon ton, because you always go up to the capital city. And in this case, of course, literally, because Jerusalem was higher. It was on a hill or high hill. Sometimes we would say mountain, depending on our particular context, whether we're used to high mountains or low mountains. To worship at, in te heorete, in the feast, at the feast. These hutoi, pointing them out again, therefore, went to Philip. And now we have a progression taking place. Philip then goes to Andrew, and together, Andrew and Philip go to Jesus. And again, notice that the historical present tense is used to describe this action. It's all supposed to lead up to the main statements, which are to follow. So whenever we have historical presence, whenever we have the present tense, especially in the John's gospel, but also in Matthew's gospel, Luke and Mark also use it in a much more limited way. They have other ways of marking what they want to lead up to. But John especially uses this historical present, the present tense. He is saying, they are saying. And then Jesus makes his statement, crucial statement, usually in the aorist tense. Now we say fronted for emphasis, eleluthen, which I hope you recognize is the perfect of Lego. The hour, in order that the Son of Man might be glorified, or should be glorified, subjunctive. Which brings up the fact, and I've put it in green font so that we notice it. One of the things that's very evident in this text here from verses 20 all the way down to 50 is that we have a continuous set of verbs in the subjunctive, followed by a statement in the indicative. It's usually aorist subjunctive, sometimes present, but usually aorist subjunctive followed by an aorist indicative. If this happens, then this will happen. Or if this happens, this is happening. If the seed dies here in verse 24, for example, it is bearing fere, it is bearing much fruit. Polun harpon, it's happening. Very often you'll find, for example, again here in verse 26, if anyone serves me, my Father will honor him. And here we have a future tense. Speaking of the future. So there's some things that are pointed out that God will give us now, and some things that are pointed out that God will give us in the future, which is an important thing to notice, that we live in the now and not yet. We live in the age in between ages. For the Jews, there was only two ages, the present age and the age of the Messiah to come. When the Messiah would come, then the King David would be on the throne and everything would be put right. The Christian lives on the one hand in that time because Jesus has accomplished the work of God and is seated at the right hand of God. He has sat down. He has finished his work. And yet there is still on earth his kingdom to come. It's not yet finished. In fact, we groan, Paul says, in the present age. So we live in the age of yes, but not yet. Some things we have, some things we don't have. Sometimes we are healed of sicknesses, sometimes we die from sicknesses, or sometimes we simply have sicknesses and afflictions and weaknesses that we must bear. So it is very important as you look at this passage that again we keep in mind the fact that we live in the yes now, the Messiah reigns, but not yet visibly, invisibly, but not visibly. Our minds are in heaven, or they should be, according to Colossians. Our thinking should be heavenly, but still we live on earth and we have to deal with things on earth. So the fact that we have some present tenses and some future tenses, which you've just learned, at least in this particular session, some of you have just learned the future tense. The fact that we have present and future tenses is very significant. In the next video session, we're going to have a different background, but we're going to continue looking at other aspects in our text, especially the fact that seems to be two different key backgrounds, two different directions, in fact, light and darkness. And that's important here in this section of John chapter 12, which is actually closing a whole large portion of the Gospel of John. He has constructed his gospel and deliberately into actually two major sections with an introduction preceding and also a short chapter 21 is a short conclusion. But more on that in our next session together.